Hi, I'm Kim. You're watching Kim Wilson TV. My channel is dedicated to helping victims of narcissistic abuse get free and stay free. Before we get going with today's video, I want to take a moment to thank Denise very much for your continued support for our channel. Denise, thank you. I don't know if you guys are going to remember, but last year we came in 9th in the world's best vlogs. This year we've won again, but this year we've come in 7th. Guys, thank you very much. That was a group effort. Okay guys, flashback 5 weeks ago. I'm sitting in my home in southern Saskatchewan, and man, do I have a revelation. So many of you have written to me and said, "Hey Kim, thanks so much for sharing your story. It's really helped to get me free." I started thinking about that a little bit and started to think about how free I actually was. I was absolutely grateful that I had had my home to go back to when I fled Trevor's house of pain. But the reality was I hadn't chosen Rockland, Saskatchewan as my home. I had been forced into that as a product of abuse. Everything about my life was about the abuse. And we're talking 2 years later. It was 2 years ago that I left Trevor. It was 2 years ago I was forced. Financial problems, physical problems. I went back to my home in Saskatchewan because it was a safety net. It was the first place I fell when I fell out of the abusive relationship. So many of you had thanked me for sharing my story and for being honest about my recovery from abuse, but I had to stop for a minute and ask myself if I was really recovering or if I was really hiding out in the only place that finances would allow and my mental state and physical health would allow. I'm going to say that the last 2 years in my home in Rockland were a continuation of the abuse. I had been rocked financially, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and I had that house. Now, of course, Rockland's a quaint little town, but it's really not what I would pick for myself or my kids. Extremely isolated, really, really limited resources, and I found it was starting to cripple me. And one day I woke up 5 weeks ago, actually after making that last video, and thought, this is not recovery. This is hiding out. Now, I started to consider all the sacrifices I had made for the relationship with Trevor, and my God, I sacrificed my dignity, my money, my health, my family. I had sacrificed everything. So I was faced with two facts. One, I wasn't living free from narcissistic abuse. I was living in the spill out of narcissistic abuse. And two, I had made every sacrifice imaginable for that relationship, putting myself and my children on the back burner over and over again, to the point that I was so depressed I was suicidal. I really want to return to being an artist. Sorry about all the noise. Part of my artist just waking up. But it was completely non-conducive to having a creative lifestyle. I had no access to supplies, resources, people, galleries, anything. I was completely cut off. It was 2 hours from the closest urban center, and that wasn't a very big urban center. I realized that I had not made the choice to move back to Rockland. What had happened was Trevor had made that choice for me. The abuse had made that choice for me. And I'm sitting one night 5 weeks ago with my son Eddie, and we're watching The Matrix for the 400th time. The movie ends. He turns to me and he says, "Morpheus, can't we leave the Matrix?" And I turn to him and I say, "Neo, where would we go?" And he said, "Mom, let's go home." That night, I had gone to bed and I had prayed about the situation, and I had asked God that His will be done in our life. Now, out of nowhere, the craziest thing happens. Within 48 hours, we have an offer on our house. Someone wants to buy our house. So I accept the offer very, very quickly. It's not a great offer, but it's some money to get us out of there. Now, we're having dinner that night, and I say, "Boys, Mommy prayed about this." And Eddie says, "Ma, forget it. I prayed about it, and God has answered our prayer. We're leaving here." Now, of course, I am faced with the fact that I've got a house full of stuff in addition to this sale, so I'm a little stressed out, and I'm not sure what to do. Well, we get an offer for the entire contents of our house. It's not a good offer. In fact, it was brutal, but we took it. We sold everything. Now, when I consider the sacrifices that I had made in that relationship, the lengths I had become willing to go to, the loss of self I was willing to sustain to maintain that relationship with Trevor, that utter turd from hell. I had sacrificed everything, my dignity, my sense of self, my money, my family, all of it. Everything was gone for me, and nothing ever came of it but more abuse. So I became very, very willing to make a great sacrifice, and I'm telling you, we sold everything. By the time we left that house, we had Scout in his kennel. That's all Scout owned, aside from the collar around his neck. And Eddie and I had the shirts on our back and nothing more. And I'm going to tell you, it really didn't turn out to be much of a sacrifice. It was extremely liberating. 5 weeks later, my house is sold. The entire contents of my life is gone. Everything, every last thing. We kept a couple of photos, and basically that's it. We arrived yesterday in Puerto Vallarta, Jalisco, Mexico, where I lived for 10 years. My son Edward was born here. And I'm going to tell you something now, right now, I'm finally free of narcissistic abuse. There is not one aspect, not one element, nothing about my life that has been dictated by narcissistic abuse. Nothing, not one single thing. Today, for the first time in 2 years, I am truly free from narcissistic abuse. Realization that everything about the relationship was a lie was one thing, but to wake up, to truly wake up to the fact that I had continued to live in that abuse for 2 years, delusional, absolutely gaslit by the belief, the false belief that I had stepped out of the abuse. I was living in the only house allowed me as a result of the abuse. My finances were still being dictated by the abuse as a result of the location I lived in. We ate only what was available at the local grocery store. Every aspect of my life was still being affected by that relationship and the abuse. The realization of that 5 weeks ago, I got to tell you, blew my mind. I became so willing to sacrifice for myself. It's kind of a strange situation that I would have been so willing to sacrifice so much for that horrible, wretched, rotten little man, and had not even considered making a sacrifice for myself or my children. Sacrifice really was something I had to look at. But when I woke up that night and realized that I could make a sacrifice for myself, my family, my future, my kids, my dog. Like, it'd been so cold in southern Saskatchewan for so long that my dog wouldn't even go outside to pee. I mean, all of us were miserable, absolutely miserable, and unknowingly wallowing in the continuation of the abuse. We're going to be in a hotel for a couple of days, and we'll be moving into our apartment soon. But I'm going to tell you, I had no idea how enslaved I still was. I had no idea how impacted the last 2 years of my life had been by this wretched little man, this odious little creature. But I'm going to tell you something. Today, absolutely today, with my son Edward sleeping in that hotel room with his dog Scout, today we are free. No longer is my life impacted by that piece of shit in any way, shape, or form. Today I'm truly free, and this wouldn't have happened if not for you guys. It was you guys thanking me for being honest that woke me up to the fact that I wasn't being honest at all. I didn't even see the reality of my own situation. Today I feel like a much more honest woman. Today I'm free. The last 2 years, I felt that I was living an unveiled life, but let me tell you, the veil has been ripped off, and I see the world in a whole different way, and I truly want to share that with you guys. I'm Kim. You're watching Kim Wilson TV. I hope you guys are having a great narc-free day.